The chamber of the Galactic Council was vast, its domed ceiling glittering with holographic constellations that shimmered in an ethereal dance. Delegates from hundreds of species sat in tiered rows, their unique forms illuminated by soft, ambient light. Elder Maltrix, his emerald-scaled visage impassive, stood at the center of the circular dais. As one of the few who had interacted closely with humanity, his voice carried a weight that silenced even the most contentious factions. "Let me be clear," he began, his deep voice resonating. "Involving humanity in our wars is folly. They are no ordinary species. Their history, their nature, it is unlike anything the galaxy has encountered before." His slitted eyes scanned the room, meeting the gazes of skeptical delegates. A ripple of murmurs spread through the assembly. The Draken Dominion's representative, Warlord Kavak, leaned forward, his crimson armor catching the light. "You overestimate these primitives, Maltrix. They are a minor species, new to the galactic stage. Their so-called neutrality is a coward's shield, a pretense to hide their weakness." Maltrix exhaled slowly, his patience clearly tested. "Do not mistake their silence for weakness, Kavak. I have seen what they are capable of. Humanity survived their own annihilation multiple times over. They adapt, they innovate, and when cornered, they fight with a ferocity that defies reason." Across the chamber, a lean figure cloaked in shadow stirred. General Threx, a rising star within the Draken military, smirked as he listened. Unlike the older Kavak, Threx was eager, brash, and ambitious. To him, humanity was an untested adversary, a mere stepping stone in his quest for galactic dominance. "Tell us, Maltrix," Threx interjected smoothly, his voice carrying an edge of mockery. "If humans are so formidable, why do they refuse to choose a side? Surely such a powerful species would crave dominance, yet they linger on the sidelines, hiding behind treaties and non-alignment pacts." Maltrix turned sharply, his tail curling in restrained irritation. "Because they understand what you do not, Threx. They understand the cost of war. Humans have learned through blood and ruin that survival often lies not in conquest, but in endurance." Threx's smile widened, but before he could reply, a chiming sound echoed through the chamber. The council speaker, a towering crystalline being whose form refracted light in dazzling hues, raised a spindly arm. "Order," the speaker intoned, its voice a harmonious blend of tones. "This debate grows circular. The matter at hand concerns whether humanity's neutrality shall remain sacrosanct or if their involvement in the Draken conflict is inevitable. We must deliberate with purpose." The chamber quieted, but the tension remained thick. Maltrix's gaze lingered on Threx. He knew the younger Draken's ambitions would not be sated by words alone. Later, in a private alcove away from the main chamber, Maltrix sat alone, his scaled hands clasped tightly. The polished table before him reflected his worn features, a reminder of the centuries he had spent mediating conflicts. Yet for all his wisdom, humanity remained an enigma, a species whose potential frightened him as much as it fascinated him. The soft hum of the door's activation broke his reverie. A young council aide entered, his small, furred frame quivering with unease. "Elder Maltrix," the aide began, his voice barely above a whisper, "I have intercepted communication from the Draken delegation. General Threx is planning an unsanctioned attack on a human outpost. He believes it will demonstrate their inferiority and force the Council's hand." Maltrix rose sharply, his tail lashing the air. "Fools," he hissed. "They will awaken a storm they cannot control." Without another word, he swept past the aide, his mind racing. The Drakens had always been aggressive, but this recklessness bordered on suicidal. Elsewhere, in the heart of the Draken Dominion, Threx stood aboard his flagship, the Hawkeye. The warship's bridge was a testament to Draken engineering, sleek, efficient, and bristling with firepower. Threx watched as his officers prepared for departure, their movements precise and disciplined. "Sir," one of his lieutenants reported, "our fleet is ready. Haven Prime has minimal defenses. The humans won't know what hit them. Threx nodded, his claws tapping rhythmically against the console. Good. We'll strike swiftly and decisively. By the time the Council learns of our actions, it will be too late. They will see that humanity is unworthy of their protection. As the Hawkeyes surged into hyperspace, Threx allowed himself a rare moment of satisfaction. To him, this mission was more than a strategic gambit. It was a chance to solidify his legacy as the Draken who toppled humanity's facade of neutrality. Back in the Council chambers, Maltrix returned, his expression grim. He knew he could not prevent the attack, but he could prepare. Activating a secure communication line, he contacted one of the few humans he trusted, Captain Marcus Drake of Haven Prime. Captain, Maltrix began without preamble, you are in danger. The Drakens are coming. Drake's image flickered into focus, his sharp features framed by the utilitarian backdrop of his command center. Understood, he replied evenly, his voice calm despite the gravity of the situation. How long do we have? Hours at best, Maltrix replied. Do not underestimate them, Captain. Their pride will blind them, but their weapons will not falter. Drake nodded, his expression hardening. We'll be ready. As the connection ended, Maltrix leaned back, his thoughts heavy. The pieces were in motion, and the galaxy stood on the precipice of a conflict it might not survive. Yet, deep within him, a glimmer of hope remained, a belief that humanity's resilience would not only endure but redefine the course of interstellar history. The vastness of space around Haven Prime was silent, a tranquil void that belied the storm brewing just beyond its borders. Captain Marcus Drake stood at the center of his command deck, his hands clasped behind his back. The outpost monitors hummed softly, displaying streams of data from their long-range sensors. Outside the reinforced observation windows, the planet's surface glistened under the faint glow of its twin moons, an image of serenity that felt at odds with the weight in his chest. Status report, Drake said, his voice cutting through the quiet. Lieutenant Anders, his second-in-command, straightened from his station. Unusual readings on the outer edge of the system, Captain. Energy signatures consistent with Draken fleet movements. Drake's jaw tightened. The Drakens had been silent for years, their grudges festering in the shadows of galactic politics. Now, it seemed, they were ready to act. Send an alert to all stations, Drake ordered. Prepare defensive protocols, and get the civilians into shelters. I don't want any unnecessary risks. Anders nodded, immediately relaying the orders. Around the command center, the crew moved with practiced efficiency, their faces tense but focused. They were a small team, hardened by years of frontier life, but even they understood the precariousness of their position. Across the expanse of space, the Draken fleet emerged from hyperspace with brutal precision. The Hawkeye led the formation, its angular hull gleaming with the malevolent red glow of its shield generators. General Threx stood on the bridge, his golden eyes fixed on the planet ahead. Bring the weapon systems online, Threx commanded, and disable their communications. I want them isolated before we strike. The Draken officers obeyed without hesitation, their movements as cold and mechanical as the ship itself. Threx's claws tapped rhythmically against the armrest of his command chair. He was eager to see the humans squirm, to watch their arrogance crumble under the might of the Draken Dominion. Back on Haven Prime, the first signs of the assault came as a flicker in the planet's orbital sensors. Drake watched as the holographic display in front of him crackled, then solidified into a red warning grid. They've jammed us, Anders reported, his voice grim. We've got multiple contacts inbound. Estimated arrival in 90 seconds. Drake's mind raced. The outpost was equipped for defense, but it had never faced a direct assault from a fleet of this magnitude. The Drakens were betting on overwhelming force, but they hadn't accounted for one crucial variable: human ingenuity. Activate the Artemis grid, Drake ordered. The room stilled for a fraction of a second. Anders turned to face him, hesitation in his eyes. Sir, the Artemis grid isn't fully calibrated. We could risk. I know the risks, Drake interrupted, his tone brooking no argument. But it's the best chance we've got. Do it. Anders nodded and keyed the command. Across the outpost, hidden turrets and energy arrays powered up, their mechanisms humming to life. The Artemis grid was an experimental system, one that combined traditional defenses with cutting-edge AI algorithms designed to anticipate enemy maneuvers. If it worked, it could turn the tide. If it failed, they wouldn't live long enough to regret it. The first volley from the Draken fleet hit moments later, streaks of plasma fire lancing through the void. The Artemis grid reacted instantly, its automated systems intercepting most of the shots with a dazzling display of precision. The remaining projectiles struck the outpost's outer shields, sending tremors through the facility but leaving it intact. Shields holding at 70%, Anders reported. Returning fire. On the planet's surface, human artillery installations opened up, launching kinetic projectiles and missile salvos toward the encroaching fleet. The Drakens, caught off guard by the ferocity of the counterattack, scrambled to adjust their formations. Threx's expression darkened as he watched the humans' response. He had expected resistance, but not on this scale. Deploy the vanguard squadrons, he barked. Flush them out. Sleek Draken fighter craft peeled away from the fleet, descending toward the outpost in tight formations. They darted through the planet's atmosphere with deadly grace, their weapons primed to carve through the human defenses. Drake's voice rang out across the command deck. All anti-air batteries. Target those fighters. Don't let them reach the surface. The outpost's automated defenses turned skyward, unleashing a barrage of firepower that lit up the night. Explosions flared across the horizon as several Draken fighters were torn apart mid-flight. But for every ship destroyed, more pressed forward, their numbers threatening to overwhelm the human defenses. Drake clenched his fists, his mind calculating the odds. He knew they couldn't sustain this pace forever. Anders, give me a connection to the hangar. I want our strike teams ready for deployment. Yes, sir. As Anders relayed the order, Drake turned to the tactical display, studying the movements of the Draken fleet. He needed a weakness, a point to exploit. His eyes narrowed as he spotted an anomaly, a gap in the fleet's formation, likely a blind spot created by their own overlapping energy fields. Lieutenant, Drake called out, send coordinates to the Argent Spear. Tell them to prepare for a precision strike. The Argent Spear was the outpost Soul Fighter Squadron, a group of elite pilots who had trained for exactly this kind of high-risk maneuver. They launched moments later, their ships streaking into the void like silver arrows. Threx's sensors picked up the incoming fighters, and his lips curled into a snarl. Intercept them, he roared. But the Argent Spear moved with a cohesion that defied expectations. They weaved through the Draken defenses, exploiting every opening with ruthless efficiency. As they reached a gap in the fleet's formation, their leader, Commander Kane, unleashed a payload of concentrated warheads directly at the Hawkeye's shield generator. The explosion rocked the Draken flagship, sending shockwaves through the fleet. Threx stumbled as the ship's systems flickered, alarms blaring. Damage report, he demanded. Shields down to 50%, an officer replied. We've lost control of the forward batteries. Threx slammed his fist against the console, his golden eyes blazing with fury. This was not how the battle was supposed to go. On Haven Prime, the mood in the command center was tense but determined. The humans had held their ground longer than anyone expected, but the fight was far from over. Drake knew they had won a small victory, but the Drakens would not retreat easily. As the night wore on, both sides prepared for the next phase of the battle. Drake stood at the observation window, his reflection staring back at him. He could feel the weight of every life under his command, every decision he had made and would make. Captain, Anders said quietly, stepping up beside him. What's our next move? Drake's gaze remained fixed on the stars, his expression raw. We hold the line, and if they want a war, we'll show them exactly what that means. The faintest hint of dawn began to creep over the horizon, casting a pale light across the battlefield. It was a fragile, fleeting calm, but it carried with it the promise of resilience. And for now, that was enough. The stars above Earth shimmered like ancient witnesses, indifferent to the brewing storm. In orbit, the Argent Vanguard, humanity's flagship fleet, waited in the cold void. Its lead vessel, the Roar, was a masterpiece of human ingenuity, sleek, angular, and bristling with advanced weaponry. On its bridge stood Admiral Ethan Cole, his sharp features illuminated by the holographic projection surrounding him. The silence of preparation was shattered by the crackle of incoming communication. "Admiral," said a calm, measured voice over the comms, "the Draken Dominion has officially denied involvement in the Haven Prime assault. They claim rogue elements acted without their sanction." Cole's lips pressed into a thin line. His gray eyes hardened as he turned toward his tactical officer, Lieutenant Kieran Hayden. "Rogue elements, my ass," he muttered. "It's a cover. They're buying time. Then we take the fight to them, sir?" Hayden asked, his tone betraying both eagerness and unease. "Not yet," Cole replied. "The Council will want proof of the Dominion's direct involvement before sanctioning a counterstrike. But we're not waiting for their bureaucracy to catch up. Prepare Task Force Echo. We'll hit one of their outer installations, something they can't explain away." Hayden saluted crisply, already transmitting orders to the strike group. Cole returned his attention to the tactical display, where the details of the chosen target, Outpost Krythos, were rendered in glowing detail. It was a Draken logistics hub, critical but lightly defended, a perfect demonstration of humanity's resolve. Hours later, the Roar and its escorts surged into hyperspace. The transition was seamless, a testament to the years of refinement in human FTL technology. In the command center, the atmosphere was tense yet electric, the air charged with anticipation. Approaching the target, Hayden announced, "We'll be within strike range in 5 minutes. Deploy the Ravens," Cole ordered. From the belly of the Roar, a squadron of Raven-class fighters streaked into the void, their dark hulls nearly invisible against the starry backdrop. Piloted by the best humanity had to offer, these sleek craft embodied speed, stealth, and precision. Their objective was simple: disable Krythos' defenses before the main fleet arrived. The Ravens descended on the outpost like wraiths, their coordinated assault overwhelming the Draken defenders. Within moments, Krythos' primary defense grid was in flames, its automated turrets silenced. By the time the Roar emerged from hyperspace, the battle was already half won. Targets neutralized, came the voice of Commander Dax Carter, leader of the Raven Squadron. "You're clear to engage, Admiral." "Well done, Commander," Cole said. "All ships, advance and secure the outpost. No unnecessary damage. We're here to send a message, not ignite a war." As the fleet moved into position, Cole's focus remained unyielding. His mind replayed the reports from Haven Prime, the lives lost, the outpost's narrow survival. The Drakens had crossed a line, and he would ensure they felt the consequences. On the surface of Krythos, the surviving Draken forces scrambled to regroup. Their commander, a young officer named Vrex, barked orders with desperation. "Hold the western perimeter. Reinforcements will come." But even as he shouted the words, he knew they were hollow. The humans' attack was surgical, relentless, and unlike anything he had faced before. Above, the Roar fired a series of warning shots, precise strikes that crippled Krythos' remaining infrastructure without annihilating it. It was a deliberate tactic, enough to demonstrate power, but restrained enough to leave no doubt that the humans could have done worse. Cole watched the unfolding operation with a detached intensity, his hands clasped behind his back. "Patch me through to the Draken command," he said. Moments later, a hologram flickered to life before him, revealing the defiant visage of Commander Vrex. "You dare attack Draken territory?" Vrex snarled. "Do you realize what you've unleashed?" "I know exactly what I've unleashed," Cole replied, his voice calm but icy. "And so will the rest of your Dominion." Haven Prime was a warning. This is our response. Pull your forces back. or the next target won't be a logistics hub. Vrex's golden eyes flared with anger, but Cole could see the fear beneath the surface. The Draken officer hesitated, clearly weighing his options. Before he could respond, the hologram cut out, replaced by static. "Sir," Hayden said, "they're jamming communications again. Typical Draken cowardice." "Let them," Cole said. "We've made our point. Pull the Ravens back and begin extraction." The operation concluded with precision, the human fleet retreating into hyperspace as swiftly as they had arrived. Krythos lay in ruins, its defenders humiliated but alive. It was a calculated move, one designed to force the Dominion to reconsider its position without provoking a full-scale war. Back aboard the Roar, Cole stood alone in his quarters, staring out at the infinite expanse of space. The mission was a success, but the weight of what lay ahead pressed heavily on his shoulders. The Drakens would not take this lightly. Retaliation was inevitable. The door chimed, breaking his thoughts. "Enter," Cole said. Hayden stepped inside, his expression serious. "Admiral, the Council has convened an emergency session. They're demanding answers about the Krythos strike." Cole turned, his face unreadable. "And what's their stance?" "Divided," Hayden admitted. "Some view it as a justified response. Others see it as an escalation. Elder Maltrix has requested a direct audience with you." Cole nodded slowly. "Maltrix understands what we're dealing with. The others, they'll learn soon enough." As Hayden departed, Cole returned his gaze to the stars. Humanity's retaliation had begun, but he knew this was only the opening salvo. The Drakens would not back down, and the Galactic Council's indecision would leave humanity standing alone. Yet Cole felt no fear. The events of Haven Prime had proven one thing beyond doubt. Humanity's neutrality was no longer a shield. It was a choice, and one they were ready to defend with fire and steel. The council chamber was a cacophony of voices, a sea of competing ideologies and inflamed tempers. Holographic displays flickered across the vast hall, replaying footage from the assault on Krythos, the shattered remnants of the Draken outpost stark against the blackness of space. At the center of it all, Elder Maltrix stood silent, his emerald-scaled visage betraying none of the turmoil brewing within him. Humanity has overstepped its bounds. Warlord Kavok's booming voice cut through the noise. His crimson armor glinted under the chamber's lights as he pointed an accusatory claw toward the human delegation. "They strike without council approval, undermine interstellar law, and endanger the fragile balance we maintain." Admiral Ethan Cole sat at the forefront of the human delegation, his face impassive as the Draken warlord raged. He had anticipated this backlash, prepared for it, and was unmoved by the theatrical display. Next to him, Captain Marcus Drake observed silently, his sharp eyes scanning the room, measuring reactions. "Balance," Cole finally said, his voice calm yet resonant. "What balance?" The Drakens attacked Haven Prime, a civilian outpost, unprovoked. The Dominion hides behind excuses while spilling innocent blood. If humanity hadn't responded, how long before they came for another neutral colony? Or another species entirely? A murmur spread through the chamber, delegates exchanging uneasy glances. Maltrix raised a hand, his voice measured and deliberate. "Admiral Cole, you claim retaliation was necessary, yet the attack on Krythos escalates tensions. Do you not see the risk of igniting a war none of us can control?" Cole stood, his movements deliberate, commanding the room's attention. "Elder Maltrix, humanity has no desire for war, but neutrality cannot mean complacency. We've seen what happens when aggressors go unchecked, on our own world and across the galaxy. If the Council cannot enforce its own laws, then we will defend ourselves by whatever means necessary." Threx, seated alongside Kavok, leaned forward, his golden eyes narrowing. "Bold words, human," he said, his tone sharp with disdain. "But you fail to grasp the reality of the galaxy. Power is not in treaties or ideals. It is in strength, and the Dominion has strength far beyond your comprehension. Cole turned to Threx, his expression hard. Then test us. If the Dominion truly wants war, we will meet it. But know this. Humanity doesn't fight for conquest or pride. We fight to survive. And history shows we're very good at surviving. The room fell into tense silence, the weight of Cole's words pressing down on the assembly. Maltrix's gaze lingered on the human admiral, a flicker of something unreadable crossing his features. Breaking the silence, a soft chiming signaled the speaker's approach, the crystalline being moved to the center dais, its form refracting the light into a kaleidoscope of colors. This council exists to prevent such conflicts, it said, its voice a harmonious blend of tones. Yet we find ourselves on the precipice of chaos. The actions of both humanity and the Draken Dominion threaten the stability we strive to maintain. The speaker paused, its shimmering form rotating slowly. There is a path forward, but it will require concessions from all parties. Humanity's status as a neutral entity must be re-examined, and the Draken Dominion must answer for its unsanctioned aggression. Elder Maltrix, as one who has long understood the nuances of human nature, I ask for your guidance. All eyes turned to the elder, whose tail swayed slowly behind him. After a moment, Maltrix stepped forward, his voice firm yet tinged with weariness. Humanity is at a crossroads, he said. Their neutrality, once a shield, has become a point of contention. But they are not the aggressors here. The Draken Dominion must acknowledge their role in this crisis and commit to de-escalation. Kavak growled low, but Maltrix silenced him with a sharp glance. The Council must also recognize humanity's unique position. Their resilience and ingenuity have been forged through trials we can scarcely imagine. They will not be subjugated, nor should they be dismissed. Instead, we must offer them a place within the Council, a voice among the stars. The chamber erupted in a mix of approval and outrage. Cole exchanged a glance with Drake, whose expression remained unreadable. The Admiral knew this was the opportunity they had been waiting for, but it came with risks. Elder Maltrix speaks wisely, Cole said, his voice cutting through the noise. Humanity doesn't seek dominance, only a chance to contribute to a greater good. But make no mistake, we will not bow to threats, nor will we be used as pawns in your power struggles. The speaker raised a spindly arm, calling for order. The Council will deliberate on this matter. Until then, both humanity and the Draken Dominion are to cease all hostilities. Any further aggression will be met with unified sanctions. The session adjourned, leaving the chamber in a tense stillness. As the delegates dispersed, Maltrix approached Cole and Drake, his scaled face inscrutable. You've made powerful enemies today, Admiral, Maltrix said softly. But you've also earned allies. Tread carefully. Cole nodded, his expression unwavering. Carefully, but decisively. Thank you, Elder. Later, aboard the Roar, Cole stood at the observation deck, staring out at the stars. Drake joined him, the silence between them comfortable but heavy. Do you think they'll let us in? Drake asked after a moment. They don't have a choice, Cole replied. Humanity's neutrality was never sustainable. Today, we prove we're more than a footnote in galactic politics. We're players, and we're here to stay. Drake nodded, his gaze distant. It's a new era, then. Not just for us, Cole said. For the entire galaxy. The question is whether they're ready for it. The stars beyond seemed brighter now, their light carrying the weight of possibility. Humanity's path was uncertain, but for the first time in centuries, it was one they would forge themselves.